When you're positioning yourself, you have to position yourself from the value that you add, not the work that you do. Your value is in your experience. Your value is in that you've seen things before. Your value is in what you can bring to something. It's in your thinking. Let me just start off here, Dean, by saying this to everyone. Your pricing model sucks. I can almost guarantee you that if you're a fractional anything, your pricing model sucks. And you know it because you're not making the money you want to, and you don't know how to change it.
Yep.
Okay? But we're here today because we want to share with you how you can fix your pricing model. Because when you fix your pricing model, you're going to be able to service your clients better, which means that they're going to have better results. Now, let me be straight. I don't have the answer, but that man does. Dean, what's up?
Hey, man. Good to see you again. This is a fun topic. Everybody loves to talk about pricing, right? I don't care what business you're in. If you're selling widgets or you're selling professional services, people always have questions about price.
Yes.
And 99% of the time, people do what? They price too low. They price too low. And so this is an epidemic in the fractional world because you got two types of people who are fractionals, right? You got people coming out of corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they have any idea how to price their fractional work? They've probably purchased consulting services, which is not fractional, it's different. Or you got consultants used to pricing projects and they don't know how to price fractional work. So we've got a lot to cover today. I think there's some tenets that we can share that will help shed some light on this and how to avoid becoming what I call vendor status. Doesn't sound good, right? Who wants to be just a vendor? Who wants to be on the vendor list? Well,
it sounds like a vending machine. Right?
Exactly.
And listen, half the times they don't work. Right? They steal your money.
Yeah.
And you want to just go to a convenience store and actually get what you want.
Exactly. Get a little service, some human service, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But what happens is so many consultants, but in particular people that are trying to sell fractional service, put themselves right into vendor status because of the way they approach discussing pricing with their prospects. Yeah. So I will start out by saying, this may be controversial to some, never quote your hourly rate.
What? No, come on. You gotta have an hourly rate.
Never
quote your hour. That doesn't even make sense, Dean.
Never quote your hourly rate. Never do it. Avoid it at absolute all cost. So here's why. Here's the philosophy behind this. When you get into discussing hourly rate, you change the conversation with the prospect. And they start to think, what am I going to get? What are the things you're going to do to justify that $150, $250, $300 an hour? What are the things you're going to do? How many times are you going to click that button, send that report, whatever it is? So you start to talk tactics. You start to talk lower level functions and activities. Would you have that conversation? If you were going to hire a CFO for your organization, would you talk to them about how many invoices can you enter in a day?
Never.
No. So why do you as a fractional frame the conversation up with your prospect that way?
But Dean, it seems like they want to know how much it's going to cost. And I need to be able to figure out what my value and my worth is. And I'm, worth this per hour, Dean.
I didn't say don't quote a price, obviously, right? They need to know what it's going to cost. But don't quote it as an hourly rate. So here's the thing. As a fractional executive, your job is to do two things. I don't care what your specialty is. You're there to help develop strategy and drive the execution of that strategy. Those are your two jobs. That's it. Not get into the weeds and enter invoices, send emails in the email marketing system or hire. No. Develop the strategy and ensure that its strategy gets driven to the end to get results. So your value is based on the impact of the work you do. The impact. So if I'm a fractional VP of sales and we agree, me and my prospect, the CEO of the business, agree that the goal is to drive $1 million in additional revenue in the next 12 months. And I agree. I'm on board to develop the strategy, drive the strategy, hit that revenue goal. And I charge him $200 an hour, and I work 10 hours a week. That's $8,000. That's 16 grand a month. It's not a bad fee.
Mm-hmm.
16 grand a month. So I'm charging them, let's say it's 150,000 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Math in the back of my head, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Is my
close enough.
150,000 bucks at the level of value of the $1 million in revenue? I think you've undervalued yourself. You've undervalued yourself, right? Because your impact is $1 million and you're downplaying the value to a couple of $100 an hour. Now, that may be a high number to some, but not when you start to talk hourly rate, you're also starting to tie yourself into the precise number of hours that you'll work every week for this client.
But hold on, before you go on there, because I do want to pause right there, because you said $200 an hour, and I want to look at you, who's listening to us right now, straight in the eye. You know, you ain't even charging $200 an hour.
Right.
Okay. You know, you ain't even there. And at $200 an hour, we just proved that wasn't even enough. I just want you to sit with that for a moment. All right. Sorry, Dean.
No, and you're right, because my frame of reference is I wouldn't even start having a conversation with the client for that rate. But for others, and I need to be empathetic to our audience, yeah, you would run through a brick wall for that rate. I get that. So it is a perspective, it's a paradigm shift. But where I was headed was 200 an hour is fine. It is a good rate for many. It is. The other part of that equation is how many hours you're going to put in. So if you in the back of your mind say, I can hit that $1 million in revenue, my value where I'm at is at 150. So I'm going to say 200 to stretch it, right? And I can do it in 10 hours a week, kind of my back of napkin math, right?
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't, I would encourage you to not say, I'm going to work 10 hours a week at $200 an hour.
You're commoditizing yourself.
You're commoditizing yourself. And then they're going to say, well, can you do it for 6 hours? Or can you do it for 10 hours at 180? Don't bring that. It may be your napkin math that you use to define your fee, but I would come to that client and say, I'm going to dedicate 2 days a week to your organization, and it's $16,000 a month in fees. Now, can he do the math? Yeah. But he doesn't know what a day is. A day for you could be 4 hours, or it could be 12 hours, depends on
Correct.
right? And 1 week I may work 2 hours, 2 days. 1 week I may work 4 or 5 days. My responsibility to my client is to deliver the results.
Yes.
Let me worry about the time and effort I need to put in to get those results. So I will always put some frame around it. It's 6 days a week or 6 days a month, and it's this fixed fee, but I will never get into the hourly rate.
Yeah. And the thing that I hope everyone's hearing as Dean is describing this is you, as a fractional, get paid for value, because the reality, and it's the old story. And I remember I heard this story in my 20s. There's a major manufacturing plant that pumps out millions of widgets a day, right? And on these widgets, they're making millions and millions of dollars a day. And all of a sudden, one day on a Wednesday, the big machine in the plant shuts down and no one can figure out what to do. And the manager comes and says, call the technician. And they call the technician, and the technician comes in and says, what's going on? And the manager explains how the machine shut down. And the technician says, okay. And he walks over, he opens a panel, he pulls out a screwdriver, he turns a screw 1/4 turn, presses a button, widget starts popping out once again, machine is back on, and he hands them an invoice for $200,000. The manager says, I'm not going to pay you $200,000 for just turning a quarter screw. And this is the problem that you have, because you think this is what's going on, okay? You're thinking, I only turned a quarter screw, that's not worth $200,000. However, that quarter screw that you turned allowed them to pump out millions of widgets that made millions of dollars. The value in that quarter turn is worth a lot. And so when you're positioning yourself, you have to position yourself from the value that you add, not the work that you do. Your value is in your experience. Your value is in that you've seen things before. Your value is in what you can bring to something. It's in your thinking.
Yeah. In the factory where the machine was down, every day they lost $5 million in productivity, as to use your example.
Mm-hmm.
Could they have sent all of their smart guys into the room, into the machine, try to figure it out? Probably. Let's say it took them a week. Let's say it took them 10 days to figure it out. That's hundreds of millions of dollars in lost profitability. At that point, they're going to call the engineer and say, I'll pay you 200 grand right now in cash before you leave, because that value was so high. So as a fractional, you may have spent 10, 20, 30 years building your craft, building your knowledge, building your expertise, and you're bringing acceleration to the business.
Yeah.
You're getting them there in a matter of sometimes weeks or months, where it would take them months or years to get there on their own. What's
Yes.
the value of doing that? If that's of worth to them, they will understand the value.
Yes.
So
And
that's exactly it. Yeah.
And I to augment even what you said about 6 days, 16,000. I would also even add on there that, listen, in order to get to your goals of hitting $1 million in new revenue, I'm going to need 6 days, which is going to cost $16,000 a month. I would even couch how I present myself in terms of the value,
Yep.
because now all of a sudden, $1 million, 16,000. Sure, it's 16,000 times 12. Okay, fine. But they're not doing that math right now. They're only hearing $16,000 million worthwhile. You're
Yep.
worthwhile.
Well, and that $1 million is just that first year, right? If that
Right.
continues on for 5 or 10 or 20 years, it's equity they're building in the business. So it
Exactly.
is all you have. It's 100% how you position it. But it all starts with understanding that what they need to do is they need to get that piece of equipment up and running again.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to do it quickly. That's the problem we're trying to solve. And so we position ourselves in understanding the current state, the current problem that the business is in. As a fractional, we have to understand that, and we have to be crystal clear on that future state. Machine's broken, we're bleeding money. We need to get this machine up and running as quickly as possible. If your expertise fills that gap, gets them from point A to point B quickly, you have an opportunity to have a value based conversation.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you're just the guy coming in and oiling the machine every day, that's an hourly rate job, dude. That's not what a fractional does. It's not what a fractional does. So it's really important to understand current state, future state, the value of that future state. And the value may be in the expense of not taking action, not fixing a thing, not doing a thing. It may not just be an upside, it may be the cost of downside. That's why we have to put our consultative hat on. I'll throw one more thing out before we wrap this episode up, Atiba. Your fees, your what you charge doesn't have to just be a monthly fee. You have options. Nobody wrote the book. I'm writing the book, but it's not written yet, right? But you get to write your own book. So you could do a monthly fee thing like we've talked about. You can also do a monthly fee plus some kind of performance or outcome based
Sure.
thing, right? Depending on your role, depending on the impact you have on the business, it could be a percentage of the profitability or the money you help them save or the money you help them gain, the reduction in turnover, whatever it may be. Maybe you're helping them with a big IT transition and you
Yeah.
get them from point A to point B without any downtime, you get a kicker in there, a bonus. So don't be stuck just on your monthly fee. Think about other ways. I've had clients come to me and say, we can't pay the fee that you've asked for. We can pay you 75% of it, but would you be willing to accept some equity in the business as the other piece of it?
Yeah.
That'd be a great way to
Possibly.
build your own portfolio, pay it potentially. I very rarely take on an engagement where they say, we want to pay you all in stock, right? Because they've got no cash. That's probably a little too soon. But get creative. Sit down with your prospect, with your CEO you're talking to, and see what options they have.
Yes.
Maybe you can have a 90-day structure and it adjusts after 90 days because your role changes or the outcomes change. So don't get stuck in just it's a one-time negotiation and you're done forever. That is not the case.
Absolutely. It dawns on me that you and I have had a lot of practice with this. We've been in a lot of situations where we've had to present, right, our structure, our fee structure, and our value structure. And you who are listening to us probably haven't. and or you stumbled. And don't get me wrong, I still stumble too. Okay. All right. And sometimes, heck, I got to take notes in to make sure I don't stumble too much. So it's okay, but you need to practice. And maybe it is that you need to practice with some real humans. Listen, you can find Dean and I on LinkedIn. Go find us on LinkedIn. The links are down below. Follow us, friend us, connect with us. That's what it's
Connect.
called on
There you
LinkedIn.
go.
Too many platforms, too many
I know, right?
different ways to do it, right? But send us a voice message of you practicing, talking about your value. Create a fictitious scenario, fictitious client, and how would you present your value to them? Send it to us. We would love to hear it, and we'll
Cool.
give you feedback.
We will. We will. If you've got a prospect and you're getting ready to pitch them, share that with us. Share what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, how you're thinking about pricing your offer. We'll absolutely give you some feedback.
So, as always, he's Dean, I'm Atiba, and we're to help you, fractionals, grow your business so that you can skyrocket your client's business. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.